welcome. We are here for the session on positive narratives for civil society. My name is Elizabeth Parsons, and I am the Communications Manager at the International Civil Society Centre. I am joined and fortunate to be joined by Rodolfo Cordova, who's the Executive Vice President and Social Justice Co-Lead at the Metropolitan Group. Welcome, Rodolfo. We're so happy and great that so many people are here for this conversation that feels increasingly important across the sector. How can we use positive, constructive narrative to build trust, deepen engagement, and move people from concern to action? So on your research, Rodolfo, you've focused on positive messaging and exploring how many organizations communicate impact and possibility. So you're going to start off with a 10 to 15 minute overview of your work and what you've been learning through your research. And then we're going to have a Q&A. So anyone who's got some questions for Rodolfo, please put them into the chat. That would be highly appreciated. And then we're going to open up the floor to anyone who wants to contribute any positive narratives that they have experienced in their organizations. Right, Rodolfo, I'll leave it open to you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Can you hear me well?
Yes,
now?
I can hear you. Perfect.
I'm going to share some slides to help me through the session. Well, first of all, tell you a little bit more about who we are and what we do. I work for Metropolitan Group, that it's an organization that focuses on narrative and communication strategies for social and behavioral change in a wide array of issues. For the past 5-6 years, I've been co-leading the social justice focus area, that it's in which all the work on environmental justice, civic space, human rights, democracy, gender, and other fall into. And for the past 2 or 3 years, we have been doing some multi-country research around pro-democracy, pro-human rights narratives, and anti-democratic, anti-human rights narratives to understand why the second are more salient and resonate more than usually the narratives that we convey as a movement. And what I'm going to share with you today is some of those findings and lessons learned, and also an example of how we are working with a group specifically to change the way that they are communicating and some of the outcomes that they have achieved. But first, I want to show you this video. I know that there's a lot of, I would say probably all of you have heard or are working on narrative change, but still I wanted to present this video to create a common ground for the session.
The narratives we're exposed to every day reflect a way of seeing the world. Repeated often enough, they can create and reinforce social norms. Hearing a narrative over and over, especially from people in authority, can silence other narratives and become the dominant narrative, accepted as being just the way things are. Narratives shape what we see and how we see issues, defining problems and identifying solutions. And they often validate or sustain the status quo, reinforcing power and privilege for those who already have it. For generations, narratives about gender defined systems and policies that reinforce the stereotype of women as inferior, cementing the inequality that still exists between people of different genders. Narratives about Native and Indigenous peoples often reflect a history of colonialism that portrays them as passive, instead of people with power and rights, making their struggles and contributions invisible. Narratives about people with disabilities often focus on their limitations in a world designed for people without disabilities, failing to reflect their autonomy and control over their own lives. Advocates for social justice and human rights are often portrayed by people in power as being extreme or even subversive. In a culture that values justice and respect for authority, punishment of people with different ideas can become acceptable. The news media, what is taught in school, music and movies, what we hear from celebrities, the language and symbols in our art and advertising, even our public monuments and the design of our cities, all communicate narrative. People are more likely to pick up and carry a narrative when it connects with values they already hold, when it affirms what they already believe, especially when it's communicated by messengers they trust. For example, some people have selectively used medical science to stigmatize and marginalize trans and non-binary people. Confronting a dominant or false narrative might not be easy, but it is possible. New narratives are being designed and advanced every day by social change advocates all over the world. Learn more about narrative as a key to unlock social change by visiting metgroup.com/narratives.
So when we talk about narratives, we talk about the articulation of a particular way of understanding the world, how it works. So it's like a way of seeing the world. We like to use the analogy of a tree to understand and unpack the narratives that are there, but also as a tool to develop our own narrative. Over experience, we have been working on this issue like for almost or a little bit more than 3 decades. We have seen that there are certain things that it's possible to identify on the narratives that are more salient. And by salient, I mean those that stay more, that can stay across generations. And there are 2 elements that I want to bring to your attention right now. One is the values. No? In the video, we are explaining the relevance of tapping into those shared values. So the values that are important to us, but also that are important to the people that we want to engage and mobilize. Something that we always try to pay a lot of attention is to think and work with the communities and groups, thinking that we are not our audience. We always try to engage and broad the message. So values is key to do that. And the other key thing to do that is articulating the messaging that is the trunk with these 4 core elements: stating a problem, presenting a solution to that problem, conveying what is the benefit for the priority stakeholders of the solution when it's implemented, and calls to action. Those narratives that stay over time clearly convey the solution and what's the benefit for people. Over the research that we did in different countries, we identified that there were core elements connected to these things that I'm talking about right now. And we were able to identify what are those shared values that resonate across generations, across political identities, across communities, either they are urban or rural, across gender identities. So it's like those shared values that allow us to engage more stakeholders on the way that we're structuring the message. So we identify these 10. And something that we identify also is that the value of freedom, when we were doing the research, but also message testing in different countries, freedom and safety are very key for people across cultures and regions. Now transitioning to an example of how we have been working on applying this work. This is a campaign that it was created by the Medical Association, so it's not like they don't consider themselves a traditional human rights organization, because they are like a group of doctors and nurses that are interested on advancing civic space and public health in their country. They identify different short-term goals in terms of behaviors. One internal, that it was participating in an extraordinary assembly, inviting people to share their stories in social media, and also more very important, encouraging people to go to the rally. This rally was focused on public budget and some cuts that people were experiencing. They identify the stakeholder audiences. And before we start working with them, this was the way that they were articulating those elements that you saw on the tree, the values, the problem, solution, benefits, and call to action. Their values were more, they were thinking more about the values as their own values, but not the values of those stakeholders that they were trying to engage. They were focusing the problem on certain attacks that they were suffering in public hospitals. And the solution that they were putting forward was standing up for doctors and nurses. They were not conveying a clear benefit for the stakeholders of the solution. And the call to action was really focused on stopping the attacks. When we started working with them, they made some adjustments, and we co-created like another message structure. So we included values as health, family, and freedom, particularly freedom of expression, life and safety. They were able to identify or to reframe the problem as more like the structural conditions that were causing certain attacks against them and the medical community. That is the lack of medical infrastructure in hospitals and public clinics and the budget cuts. The solution that they put forward was that the government needs to allocate more resources, so there's enough staff, medicines, and equipment. And the benefit, they thought of a benefit of how that was going to impact the lives of people in El Salvador. And a call to action, basically raising the voice to demand those changes. And here are like different core messages, that you can see how first they were thinking more about stopping the attacks, and the one that they created afterwards was thinking more about conveying more the benefit of the work that they are doing and what they were putting forward. And they convey these through different they convey these very important as through an institutional video in social media, a press release, and like a press release with the face of the president of the association, and different videos, conveying the narrative and the call to action. And something that happened that was very positive is that basically the metrics in social media like increase dramatically. So there was like a very evident change of like the before and after. They start implementing these recommendations, but also these elements in their messaging. And there was also a lot of participation in the rally. They created like a more union in the medical association that was also important to them in terms of the goals that they have. So there were some key changes both internally and externally, and they have positioned themselves right now as a group that is protecting not only families and like people in the country, but most importantly like an actor that it's still in a very difficult context, political context, expressing views, different views or contrary views to the to those of the government. So what I'm trying to say, like there are certain things that can help you and that we have seen over the years. And just to wrap up this space, this presentation, like here are some tips that, based on our experience, have been useful for other groups. So one is the values. Try to think always of these values, but also if you identify others, that's good. Again, it's not only a matter of not talking about what is important to us. I think it's a matter of not only talking about what is important to us. No? We need to put ourselves in the shoes of the stakeholders to try to think more about them. In terms of the messaging, use those 4 elements and try to weave the values in the messaging. And always, if you have the possibilities, test, try, and refine. There are different ways of testing. It's even if there are not much resources, there are always creative things, and we can talk a little bit more about this in the Q&A session. So this is the contact. Here's the link to the website in which you can find all the resources about the research and the recommendations that we're putting forward. And Elizabeth, back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rodolfo. That's great. It's really interesting to see the research that you're doing. Well, first off, from my side, I just want to ask you a few questions. Just many CEOs are wrestling with how communicative challenges without overwhelming their audiences. And based on your research, what advice would you give these organizations to help them reframe issues in a way that increases public engagement? So I know you were talking about shared values in that sense, but how do they find the shared values if the org? No, let me answer. Let you answer. Sorry, first.
Yes. So I think that I would say 2 things. One is around the values, no, that we are talking about, but also talking about the benefits, no. When we talk about whole-based narratives and trying to portray a different vision of where we're trying to achieve as movement, is presenting stakeholders something that can be different, you know? And what would they gain if that different thing is happening? You know? Something that we have worked with some of the organizations across regions is talking about the story of civil society and how our societies and communities are living better lives because of the work that we're doing. It's like a way to talk about the future, but with examples of the past, like what difference we have made. So I think that those 2 things could be important, and it's not something that it's difficult in the sense that we have a lot of information about how we have changed lives, no, in all those issues that we're working on. So we have a lot of stories there, and I think that the tree is key. Know how we can convey those stories, the leaves, no, like people see those leaves in terms of the benefit that we have created.
And in terms of your example from the medical association, how did they get that outreach? How did they get so much of an exponential growth in their audience? Was it solely through positive messaging alone, or was it also through campaigning? Or do you know?
Yeah, I think it was a combination. It was like structuring the messaging and campaigning. But what it was super interesting is that they were not doing something different in terms of the way that they like to do things. No, so if you see the institutional video, it's very like serious, no, because they are doctors. So it's not like they are stepping away from their core values. No, they are structuring the messaging different. They are adding certain elements that allow them to tell the story. And something that was interesting was that they were able, because of the pivot that they did in terms of the core message afterwards, was that people relate more to those things, no? Because people have experienced over the years the lack of medical staff, the lack of medicines, the lack of medical infrastructure, and how that has impacted lives. It was a way to create a bridge with those like broader set of stakeholders. So instead of talking about the attacks and having like a more confrontational approach, it was more like trying to find like a common field,
Commonality.
a conversation could happen with more stakeholders and that people relate to those things.
And through your research, do you have any other examples of that? Or
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there are others that I can play not only in terms of like short-term gains, but also in terms of perceptions and participation. So thinking also about the social norms, policies. Yeah. I think there was someone was raising their virtual hand.
Let me see.
But I think it was someone from Cairo.
Let me see. Sorry, I don't see any questions coming in. Maybe. Okay, yes, somebody is asking a question. Sometimes the amount of resources CSOs have for communication, it's very difficult to challenge messages from governments that spend millions on communications campaigns and have media exposure every day. For example, La Mañanera in Mexico. Sorry for my terrible pronunciation there. What are your recommendations on this?
Yeah, so there are two things, no? Like something that we were able to identify is that it's not only a matter of resources, no? It's a matter of how you structure the narrative in a way that can be heard by more people. So not focusing only on the problem, no? Because when we talk about when we focus on the problem, that it's right here, no? We connect people to with this feeling or sense of fatigue, the apocalypse fatigue. People don't want to hear to more no, like we all have a lot of things on our minds all day long.
Well, so, yeah, especially right now, there's so much doom and gloom all over the shop. It's actually quite overwhelming, and I think this is what people are so drawn to when it comes to like positive narratives. They really want to hear how they can change change the script a little bit for civil society because of the messaging that we have historically conveyed. Attacks, threats. We're very much on the defense, and and through your research, do you feel do you have any other learnings from that? Do you want to share anything about that?
Yeah, I think that. So what I was going I think my point was it's not only a matter of resources; it's also a matter of how you structure your core message. So one recommendation is think about those values that you share with your stakeholders. The ones that these set of 10 values are values that resonate, that we found that resonate a lot in different countries and cultures. But there are others that you can try to find with the people that you want to engage and mobilize.
So another question. Oh, sorry.
Connected to that is how we can map and prioritize our stakeholders. Because when we put ourselves on their shoes, it's different to put yourself on the shoe of an 18 to 25 young woman than 50 to 60 white men. So we need to try to map and prioritize stakeholders to then create messaging that resonates with them.
Okay. Yeah. And just another message coming in. It says, if a message needs to reach a global audience, do you have any practical recommendations on how to navigate different time zones in ensuring the messaging reaches the maximum audience?
Yeah, I think that's a question related to strategy, and how, like, which partners do you have in the different time zones? If it's to be offline or online. If it's online, our experience is that you can schedule, no, so many of those
Mhm.
posts, so can come out at the same time. But there are also ways to coordinate both online and offline. No? Like if you're having like a global thing, you can have like a press conference in different countries at the same time, or at least the same day. So it's like a cascade of information that's flowing. So those two things could help.
Okay, great. We do have a raised hand from Batsaba. I'm going to try and unmute you now, and you can come and ask your question. Are you there?
Hello, first of all, thank you so much. Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. My name is Batseba. I'm from GEM Tigray, Gender Empowerment Movement Tigray, economic and political empowerment of, or just to transform the gender norms in our communities. So first of all want to say thank you so much for this so powerful. Second, I want one thing that we're struggling with is the social norms against the equality of women and men, and how has the experience of the presentation or the the messaging transformation changed this? I know there is a different experience in the communities where you serve, but I wanted to ask, how has this impacted the social norms in general? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Did you get that, Rodolfo? There was a little delay there in the internet. Are you comfortable to answer?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Thank you, but I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly. Please correct me if I did. So you're making me think of at least the region that I know a little bit more about. It's Latin America, and I mean we have seen progress. So let me pull one slide to, because I think um, so when I mean, this is kind of the different layers of impact that we try to measure our initiatives. No? The ones on the left is more the individual, that it's more behavioral, that it's knowledge, attitude, and behaviors. But then is the structural part, no? That it's connected to the policies, laws, the norms inside of the organizations, and the social norms that you were talking about. I think that's something that I've seen over the years is how norms are changing, connected to also changes in the legal framework. So it's like a combination of these 6 things kind of reinforce each other. A narrative is important because it allows you to impact those different levels that reinforce each other. So when one change happens in terms of behavior, and it's accompanied by changes in the legal framework, that creates an enabling environment for social norms to change. No? And if the norms change, then it's more possible that behaviors, specific individual behaviors, can sustain over time as well. So they reinforce the new social norms. And I have I mean, I can see a lot of progress around reproductive justice, for instance. No? Not that there's still not a lot of things to do, but there has been progress around. Or in Mexico, we have data based on different surveys that we had on how there was a change in attitudes, no, about gender norms and roles. And also, I think that something that we found as part of the research is that women and LGBT plus communities are one of the first groups that are targeted by anti-democratic actors, and there's a reason why that's happening. And I think that now, I mean, there are different examples not across the region, but what is happening right now in Argentina with the president and specifically one journalist. To me, it's a very telling story about how AI.
Could you describe that scenario for everyone who's not aware
Definitely.
of the story?
So she's a very acknowledged journalist that she founded her own media channel and YouTube many years ago. And the government has been targeting her through different lawsuits, and also using AI, generative AI, to create videos that are really, really violent. And I think it's a way also to send a message. And I think that what is happening there, it's also a way to send a message and to hinder like democratic principles and values.
Sorry to cut you off there, Rodolfo. I just wanted to make a point and ask you about it. Seeing in some of the messaging is so a lot of people are coming from situations where there is attacking and threats, and they do feel like the messaging is has to be defensive and really clarify the challenges that they face. But how do they stay positive even when the situations feel so frightful and negative in that sense?
I mean, something that we have seen and experienced also is how we can drive inspiration from the past. This is not the first time that we're facing what we're facing. Other people from other generations and face similar or also different hardships. And I think that there's a lot of value in having those like intergenerational conversations to draw inspiration and see how change is possible.
There's some more questions coming in from the audience. Yes, I wanted to ask, how have grassroots movements transformed community dynamics in ways that are often overlooked by mainstream narratives?
Can you share that again?
Say that again. Sorry, 1 second. Yes, how have grassroots movements transformed community dynamics in ways that are often overlooked by mainstream narratives? So grassroots movements transformed community dynamics in ways that are often overlooked by mainstream narratives.
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. No, I think that the reason that there are dominant narratives that overlook that it's intentional. And I think that it's also, I was talking about that it's a matter of how our own narratives are structured, but also I'm thinking of the topic of consistency, the relevance of being consistent. So someone was talking about the Mexico case right now, and I think that there are a lot of examples of those.
Yeah, actually, that does lead me to an important question that I had thought about myself earlier when you were presenting, is the importance of consistency. And from your perspective, how important is it for organizations to maintain a coherent narrative across communications campaigns and programs work? And do you see inconsistency as like a major barrier to trust?
I think that what it's challenging with inconsistencies is that it confuses the stakeholders that we're talking about. I don't know if that's connected to trust, to be honest, but I think that that's more like people don't understand what we are for. And I think that that's key, not like talking more about what we're for and not only what we are against, what we're trying to build.
Yeah. Actually, I'm just noticing the time here now. I did want to ask if anyone wanted to come on and tell a story from their own organizations of a positive narrative Is there anyone from the audience that would like to raise their hands and do that and get their feedback from Rodolfo? Just raise your hands if you'd like to. But actually, there's one more question I would like to ask you, Rodolfo, from my side. It's about collaboration, seeing as the Global Perspectives Conference is all about collaboration. And we often say that narratives are more powerful when aligned across networks, yet coordination can be very difficult in practice. So what advice would you offer CSOs and coalitions that want to amplify a shared message without losing their individual identities?
I think that's amazing, and there are different opportunities, and it could be both. No, you could advance your own institutional narrative that it's conveying a vision, that it's also part of a different initiative or campaign, that it don't have like specific branding of the organizations. But I think that's possible. There are different examples out there that we're happy to share, that it's not only in terms of digital, but also offline, using creative expressions, that it's key to engage more, like to meet people or reach people in a more like less political, social way, but more like, to the emotions that are key, and that's why values is important. Yeah.
Nice. There is Hadiza, I'm going to say, it wants to come online and share your positive stories. I'm just going to ask you to unmute now.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
My name is Hadiza Umar from Nigeria. So yeah, very interesting conversation, and resonates very well with a lot of things that we're doing here. Like my organization, Hope for Communities and Children, we are currently running some child-facing campaigns targeting adolescent youth. And when it came to messaging, what we did was that we sat with the target and we identified some stakeholders, major stakeholders that we feel might push back on the messages or might help to push the messages forward. And also people who understood, like faith-based organizations, traditional institutions, parents, young people. And we shared with them what we wanted to do. We talk about and the intent of the program. And what we want to do is to have road shows, market shows where we can be able to sensitize people about what family planning is all about, and how it affects their lives or will make things better, looking at the scenarios and situations we're facing. And we brought people from the different localities. We had like 12 localities we were going to work with. So we brought different people from different localities, and we now agreed with them what would be the message we'll be talking about. And we now asked each and every community to tell us how they would want to label the message, and what are the realities they would want to display through the message. When we were putting up posters, we're designing posters, we shared with them what would they want the people or the message to look like. Everybody shared what they wanted. Let's see how we can come up with something generic that will come across. And we agreed on 2 languages, English and the local language. And we asked them we tried to decolonize the message in the sense that we're looking at it rather than say, oh, you were giving your message down, what are the things that are coming from your communities? And they each one told us, and then we said, okay, we have a generic message. So when we're going to have these market outreach dramas, local theaters, every community will speak in its language, say its story the way it is. And since we started this, usually you would have people push back or we get negative. We've not gotten any negative message. Rather, we've seen people even follow the team to the facilities to access the products. And we've had a lot of questions, people bringing families and friends. So yes, the context, the values, and the packaging is very, very important. And for us, we're really happy. With the target we've set for 6 months, we've even exceeded the target in 1 month already. So this is really good for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hadiza. That was a really lovely story, actually. Do you want to comment on it, Rodolfo?
Not really. I think that's a great example.
Self-explanatory.
Yeah,
I think
and
that's it, though. People really resonate with positive messaging, and people also have a fear of, have a like people want to believe in something, right? People want to have hope for things. People don't always want to feel that the world is coming in on top of us. Do you agree?
yes, and I'm seeing Zainab, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, a question in the chat around the. Sorry, I've been trying to keep the pace on the chat, but a lot of comments.
Yeah, I
So I'm
appreciate that
looking
too.
at
Thank you.
the learnings. So yeah, I mean, something that we do is how we use these insights and learnings and create frameworks that are important in the context of each of the contexts, and how through participatory storytelling we can develop those stories from the community. So in that sense, it's how we can adapt and operate. So it's how we make those reels, so we take the values to send them, and then work on the different issues through the stories that the organizations already have. So it's a way of weaving this. It's not like nothing like that top down or going from the global to the local. No, it's how we can use learnings and insights that have worked, that we know that resonate, to create stories that come from people's voices.
Thank you very much. I think we've got time for one more question, and I really like this question in the chat from Lenny. How does narrative change work beyond communication media work, especially in the context of disinformation, which I think is a huge issue for CSOs at the moment, right? Disinformation is our enemy.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's two. I think that again, it's not that I want to be repetitive, but I think that if I can leave you with two core ideas, one is try using shared values. No, values are important because it allows you to connect with emotions of people, and the other is weave those values on a structure that allows us to not focus only on the problem. I think that if we have those two core things, we can deploy those things through offline campaigns, through creative expressions, working with cartoonists, working with theater, cinema, like all these things that are channels in which people are receiving information, they are receiving those narratives. So it's not only like the media, that of course it's important, but thinking more about the other spaces in which we consume information, try to get into those spaces to convey what we want to.
Yeah. Well, I think I want to wrap it up there, Rodolfo, if that's okay with you. There's a feedback poll I would like all of the participants to fill out in the next few minutes while we wrap up. Thank you so much for your incredible research that you're going into and that you're doing right now. And I think you also wanted to ask if there was collaborators. Was there? There was one last question you wanted to ask the audience for future with your research.
Yeah, no, that, I mean, thank you. I think that, I mean, we are in the process of like implementing many of these things. So I think, I don't know if it's okay, Elizabeth, that you share the information, about
if anyone wants to get in touch
everything.
with you.
Yeah,
with
I
this,
think that would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to share it in the Hoover app and then online afterwards. Okay.
Thanks so
Brilliant.
much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, your work also makes it really clear the positive narratives aren't about glossing over problems, right? So it's just about finding the shared values. I really appreciate your contribution today, and thank you everyone in the audience for contributing as well. And yeah, great session. Thank you very much for everyone for attending.
Thank you everyone for the participation.